The secret behind why burnout is taking over the world. Let's talk about how high achievers, leaders, and workforces and organizations are burning out and what actually works. Because you see, burnout is not just a motivation issue. It's an internal struggle because your system is broken. Burnout is not a resilience failure. You're resilient because you keep trying, you keep showing up. But burnout is not an individual weakness. It doesn't mean you're weak because your body and your system is starting to fail you. Often it is viewed as a weakness, but it's a systems failure, not just an individual issue. There are individual components. And burnout does have predictable outcomes of how we work, lead, and operate. And it's not positive because we're not supposed to function from a state of burnout. You see, high performers, leaders, and organizations are all burning out differently, but it's systematic. So today we're going to talk about this full picture of the burnout equation. We're going to talk about brain, behavior, leadership, and workplace systems because it's all impacting this burnout that's going rampant in the world. And it is a hot topic. So let's start with the individual layer, the psychological and behavioral aspects that show up individually because you are human. But let's talk about what this long-term stress is doing to you as a human, right? In previous videos, we've talked about chronic stress rewires your brain and your body. It starts to wire in a way that you're always assessing for threat and every situation is urgent and your body's not going to function the way it's supposed to. You might have stomach issues or inflammation because it's affecting you. Your nervous system can become locked in survival mode. And I've seen this before. I've had clients who come to sessions and talk to me and I've had this multiple times where it's they're constantly kind of on edge, right? Like they can't sit still, they're always moving, they can't formulate their thoughts very well. And it's because their nervous system has been trying to function in this long-term stress state for way too long that they're stuck in survival mode. And we have to help unlock that. Your focus and your memory decline. So if you're in this burnt out state, you will struggle to focus, right? Which means what normally takes you 10 minutes to complete might take you 30 minutes or more. And that's just because your brain is constantly assessing for threat. It can't clearly think through how to accomplish that task, even if it's a simple email that you're trying to reply to. Memory recall does turn off, like not completely turn off, but it becomes dysregulated. It is harder to recall information because your brain is so focused on the here and the now and is this safe that it doesn't care about past stuff that you're trying to remember. It does affect your emotional regulation, meaning you maybe used to be able to pause and think through how you want to respond when you're irritated with somebody. But instead, if you're burnt out, you're going to react to them and it might look like an emotional explosion. So for example, I had a supervisor once say, Deidre, how you doing? And I cussed at her. I said, I don't blank care. And she calmly closed the door and asked further questions. Not a response I should have given, but that was that emotional explosion of doesn't matter anymore. When you're burnt out, your sleep will decline. You're not going to sleep restfully because your brain is still assessing for threat. It still feels like it has to keep watch. And you're still trying to figure out everything that's been going on, right? And your physical body might just have so much energy, it doesn't know what to do with it, so it can't rest. So there's so many reasons that burnout affects your sleep. It's also reasons it's affecting you as a human is exhaustion becomes about the biology and physiology that's going on in your body. It's not just motivational, right? You can be mentally exhausted and even physically exhausted. But if you've been functioning in that state for too long, that's not about motivation. You don't need more motivation, right? You need recovery and momentum to get going again. We often think that rest alone will fix it, but rest alone does not fix burnout. And that's because your ability to regulate is broken. We have to heal all of it. You see, high achievers get trapped in this performance overdrive cycles, which means the more I'm focused on accomplishing all these things out here in front of me, then I'm doing good. But they lose sight of what's going on inside. We have to be connected to our bodies and know what it's trying to tell us. Because remember, burnout is a capacity injury. It is not a character flaw. There's nothing wrong with who you are as a person. It's about your capacity and what your body and your mind can handle. We have to heal both. The next area that burnout really impacts is leadership, right? So this is still you as an individual, and we might be talking about leaders in organizations and work, but we're all leaders in life in some way. And the way it really affects it, and they're often the first ones to burn out, is because high performers, we tend to override our stress signals to meet expectations. So this might be you if you're a leader at your work, but this could also be you as a parent. You are leading your household and your children, and you tend to focus on expectations more than what's going on within you. High achievers also have this perception that time management can fix it, but the truth is time management fails when your capacity collapses. So we can put all the time management structures in place, but if your capacity has collapsed, it's not going to help. It's not going to fix what's really going on. We also tend to think that boundaries are going to help, and boundaries are absolutely a part of the puzzle, right? I talk about this all the time. Everything we talk about is a small piece of it, but we have to put it all together to create a system that recovers. And so where boundaries fail is they don't help when the nervous system is dysregulated. They can help put boundaries around your time so that you can create and have that space to recover, but it's not the only thing that's going to fix a nervous system that's dysregulated, and it won't fix it by itself. As leaders, we often see discipline and it covers up when we're depleted because we're so focused on discipline, or discipline, it looks like we're disciplined, but when the truth is we're depleted. So we have to pay attention to what's really going on there, right? Leaders can unintentionally reward overfunctioning. And so I've seen this a lot where leaders who say yes all the time and who step up and take care of certain problems or take on different projects and get them done, they're often the ones that will be asked to do more. And so they're rewarded by doing more, right? So now you're expected to overfunction, and we have to be careful that we're not pushing our leaders into that state. We often think that performance without protection becomes a countdown. So it's not all about performance. Performance is important, and it's important to um, and to doing your job, and it's important to the organization, but we have to protect how we perform. You see, I used to think that I could perform well by always saying yes and working 24/7 if the need arose. But the reality is my body broke down because of that, because I wasn't protecting it. And now today, when I protect it, I protect my energy and my time, and I stay connected to my body, my performance is better. It seems counterintuitive, but it's important. Because burnout isn't caused by weakness, it is caused by unprotected excellence. And so, how do organizations and your workplace play into this? Because burnout is a business risk. And the reason for that is burnout isn't just personal, it's actually a systemic issue. And a lot of our workplace systems are not designed for the human. They view people as a cog in a wheel and as a machine, not as a human who needs some protection and some different factors, and those systems need to change. You see, leadership behavior quietly shapes workplace burnout culture. And so if you're a leader in your workplace and you're wondering why your culture is so negative and maybe everybody's talking about stress and burnout, pay attention to how you're behaving, because as a leader, people follow what you do. So if you're telling people to use their time off, to leave work when they're supposed to leave work and you're not, they're not going to believe you and they're not going to do it. They're going to get the perception that it's not okay for me to use my time off. And to be honest, I've seen leaders treat people negatively for using a benefit they've been given. So as a leader, it's about leading by example and being positive about those things that are important and helpful. We also have to be cautious because there's this perception that wellness perks are going to fix it. And I'm here to tell you wellness perks fail. And they fail because wellness perks don't change the systems that are broken, that are causing people to be burnt out. Managers are often crushed in this, what we might call this little middle leadership squeeze. So if you're middle management, right, you're trying to support and lead your team who's below you and make sure they're doing the work. You're also trying to meet the expectations of your executive leadership or maybe your board of directors, and those two needs don't always mesh. So how does that sit for you in that middle position, right? It's a lot to try to juggle, and you can feel squeezed by it. But the truth is, for organizations and workplaces who are experiencing burnout, burnout is going to drive turnover. There is at least a 50% rate of employees in every field that I have researched. I've researched healthcare, I've researched tech, education. The statistics are the same. 50% of your workforce is experiencing burnout, and half of those people are thinking about leaving. So burnout is driving your turnover. When people are burnt out, they make more errors because they can't focus and they can't think clearly. So errors happen, accidents happen. And when this is going on and people are burnt out and they become very negative and cynical, what used to be a positive work culture, it will erode. It will become very negative and cynical. And I've watched this multiple times. I've worked for companies people loved working at. The camaraderie was great. People loved being at work. They would enjoy little potlucks together. And then something changed, and instead of seeing people as human, because that's what was going on when people left it, they were seen as a person with a life, with a capacity to do only a certain amount of work. And yes, they're pushed because there's always work to do. But the culture eroded when the expectation shifted from you now need to function like a machine who works more and does more in less time, and it becomes terrible. People don't stick around. There's also a instability in the leadership pipeline, meaning if your high achieving leaders are going to burn out first, they're going to be one of the first ones to leave. And I can guarantee you employees will probably follow. Might take a little while, but they will, because they'll see, if my leader couldn't manage it, how am I supposed to? And that's where burnout is an operational risk. So it's not just an HR issue. But how do we integrate all of this into one truth so that we can fix it effectively? So there's really three levels, right, that burnout lives, and we have to work to repair that. So individually, it is nervous systems that get injured. It is leaders who unintentionally amplify that stress. So if you're a leader in an organization, are you amplifying that? And organizationally, it structurally normalizes overload. And we have to work to repair it at all three levels because treating one level in itself is going to fail. It is not sustainable. But sustainable recovery does require that biological regulation. So that's the individual systems internally that we do to manage and recover for ourselves. As leaders, we also have to implement behavioral change, and we have to model that, or we're not going to change our workforce. And organizationally, we have to redesign our systems to support humans working, not machines. And I get that comes with a lot of controversy, and maybe sometime I'll do a video that deep dives into that, because I've hear often, well, I can't change the laws and the systems, we just have to work within it. And that's not true, because I've changed the laws. I've impacted that, and it can happen. And it takes all three levels to get us from this state of, it's just normal to work in a state of stress and burnout. We have to change that. Because remember, burnout isn't random. It is engineered by a misalignment of systems. So if our systems are not aligned together, it's a problem. So we have to redesign that. And so what does actually work to do this, right? We work on that nervous system regulation before productivity, and that's the individual level, what we can do for the individuals. We also work on that capacity management before time management. So do you have the energy and the ability to do what you need to? And then let's create the time around it and structure that so it works for both. Then at the leadership level, right? Leadership has to create that sustainability before they put on that performance pressure. Because if our systems aren't sustainable, performance won't happen, it will decline. And then as an organization, we have to recreate our systems and redesign them. And that's before and even in addition to wellness perks. Wellness perks are beneficial, people enjoy them, but we also have to look at the system and redesign it. It takes both to fix the organization. You see, recovery that addresses both the brain and the body, behaviors and boundary, leadership and workload, and culture and systems are what's going to create a thriving workforce that can sustain for the long haul. So it's really a two-path process of conversation, right? One is, what do we do for professionals who are exhausted? And if you're a professional listening to this and you're the one going, that's me, I'm exhausted, I don't know how much longer I can go. If you're exhausted, but you're still trying to perform, if rest doesn't restore you, and if your focus, energy, or motivation feel unreliable, I encourage you to take the professional burnout assessment. It will be linked in the description. And let's come back from burnout. Let's do what you can individually to recover, because as a professional, you can. I did. I walked hundreds of clients through the recovery process, and you can too. But this burnout assessment is the place to start, because it'll help you diagnose what's going wrong. It is private, nobody else sees your results, and it is action oriented. This is going to show you where burnout is already impacting your nervous system and your performance, even if you're still functioning. So check it out. If you're a leader and an organization, feel free to take the professional burnout assessment if you resonate with that. But if you're wondering and you're seeing that turnover, disengagement, or culture strain is rising in your organization, and if you as a manager are overwhelmed with how to fix it, and if the performance in your company feels fragile, I invite you to take the organizational burnout assessment, And that will also be linked in the description because this assessment is going to help you identify your risk factors. It's going to help you get some leadership insight and some system diagnostics because this shows where burnout is embedded in the leadership behavior and the workload design and the culture, but we want to change it before it collapses. Because you see, burnout is not a failure, it's just feedback. Feedback on the individual level, feedback for the leader, and feedback for the workforce and the company, for the organization. It's not personal, but it is predictable. It's not just permanent, but it is fixable. So we often think this is permanent, right? I just have to function in stress. You don't. It is fixable. I promise you. So start with the assessment that fits. And if both do, take them both because sustainable performance isn't about pushing harder. It's about building systems that don't break people.